Hello everyone, I am Zishansha and welcome to Zinteractive. We will move to manipulation tools tutorial in our second lesson without wasting our time.
We don't need to waste our time. We don't need to waste our time. We don't need to waste our time.
Okay everyone, welcome to the second tutorial, which is about the manipulation. In the manipulation, we will learn how to manipulate an object. So there are a couple of different ways to manipulate an object. The first thing that we have here is the selection. Selection basically do not manipulate an object, but it allows you to select an object and then accordingly you can manipulate as well. Okay. Now, where you find the selection in the Maya, selection is over here. You will see this white arrow. This is basically selection. Now, how the selection works, the shortcut for the selection is Q. So if I press Q on my keyboard, okay, so you will notice that it selects automatically. Okay, so here as well you can see in the tooltip it says Q. So what does the selection do? It does not do a lot, just only it allows me to select any object. Okay, so you can see I can select in this way. Another way to select an object is if I want to select multiple objects. So I can click anywhere and drag and you can see a marquee is being created. So if I want to select these three objects, so you can see that what are the objects inside the marquee, the box which is where my objects are inside, then the sphere and the smaller box. So if I leave my mouse left button, you can see all those three objects which were inside my marquee are selected. This bigger box was inside, it is selected, the sphere and the smaller box. So all these three are selected. And as well, one more thing, this light was inside the marquee also. So not three, four objects are selected. So you can see all the four objects are selected. This is white, this is white, this is white, but the bigger box is green. Green means the object which is selected in the end. The last selected object will be always green. Now, why do we have a green specific color? Because sometimes what happens in Maya, whenever you work on some kind of effects or some kind of options, it depends on the order of the selection. Okay, suppose I want to apply an effect on this sphere and this box, so the effect maybe is like between these two. So it asked me, okay, first you have to select the first object, like suppose this one, and then you have to select this one. Okay, so in this way what happens is that the last one will be green. So I know, okay, this is the last one I have selected and this is my right selection. So I was supposed to select this in the end. So that's why you have it in the green color, so that you know your order is correct. Now that was one way to select with a marquee. Now another way to select multiple objects is with a shift key. So you press the shift key on your keyboard and you select the object that you want. Suppose I want this object, or I want this object, or I want this object. Okay, so three objects are selected. So basically this is another way to do the selection. Okay, now let me deselect by clicking anywhere in this gray area and nothing is now selected. Now the main manipulation over here are the three. Move tool, the shortcut is W. Rotate tool, the shortcut is E. The scale tool, the shortcut is R. So I will press the W for the moving. So I can select any object here, okay, and at the same time I can move them. Okay, so notice that I have three axes here, Y, and if I click on Y I can move it up and down. Okay, then I have here Z axis, I can move back and forth. Okay, and then I have here X, so I can move it sideways. So this is pretty much how you can move them. Okay, now in the first video I told you about the four viewports of the Maya. You can get them from here, okay, or you just press spacebar one time and you will move to this. So wherever, so you will see all these, and if you want to move to this one, you just hover over here and press spacebar again one time and you will move. Press the spacebar again and then you will move it out. Okay, so why do we have these three? The reason is that the perspective viewport is actually a view that you will use for rendering. You can also work if you're an expert, because if you're not an expert, so I highly recommend to manipulate objects in these viewports. Okay, why? Because these viewports actually give you the right dimension and the right direction. You will not move to any wrong direction if you're using these three viewports. For example, suppose I want to move this sphere. So I can go in the top viewport, can select the sphere here, and you can see I have the x-axis and the z-axis, but I don't have the y-axis, okay? Because in the top viewport, I cannot move the object up and down because I can only move it sideways, okay, and back and forth, okay? So it will not allow me to move it up and down. Same if I will go to the front viewport and I will select the object, okay, so let me move it a little down. You will see that I have here my sphere, which is basically I can move in the x direction, okay, just like this, or in the y direction, but I cannot move this back and forth, okay. Now back and forth, the reason I cannot move it is because the angle of back and forth moving is a Z angle, which is not available in the front viewport, okay. Is it clear? By the way, if you will see this wireframe here and not over here, is the reason is that my wireframe is on, because if I will turn this wireframe off from here, I will not able to see my objects, okay. So that's why I have turned it on, okay. So you can also do that. Here, let me move this around. As you know, in the first class, I told you how to pan around. You press Alt key, middle mouse button, and you can pan around. So pretty much you can do that. You can zoom in and zoom out, okay? But you cannot orbit around because orbit is locked in the orthographic view. These are the orthographic views, okay? Now, here in the side views, I have Z-axis where I can move back and forth, and I have y-axis, I can move up and down, but I don't have an x-axis. I cannot move it sideways because the sideways is not available. It is kind of locked in the side viewport, okay. Now let's see one thing over here. Let's go to the top viewport, and now you will understand more about this. I'll select my sphere. Now sphere, I have here Z-axis, okay, and I have here x-axis. Now, as I told you before, Z-axis is not available over here, okay, and x-axis is not available over here. So if I will move my object on the Z-axis, you will see that it's going back and forth. So I can see the changes here, I can see the changes here, okay, but I don't see the changes here in the front viewport because Z-axis is kind of locked, it's restricted. The reason is that because the angle that we are looking at, it's actually a Z-axis angle, and you will see here a small box, okay, which is blue. Blue means you're looking from a Z-axis, and you can see that here also it is written Z. So you are on a flat angle. It's like a flat angle. There is nothing like a perspective over here. So if this ball is coming near to you, okay, it's coming towards you, so you don't see any changes because it's a flat view. The size, the angle is not changed, okay. So the sphere's size is constant. It's not changing. So that's why you don't see any changes over here. Actually, it is moving, but the reason you are not able to see is that because it's a flat angle. For example, if I will take this torus, move it in front of you, like in front of the sphere, and if I move the sphere now here, just notice what happens when it penetrates the torus, okay. Can you see a little bit change over here, okay? That means it is moving, But the reason we cannot see is that the angle is flat, so the size is constant. So it does not show us like there is something like a change. Okay, so I hope it is clear about the viewports over here. Okay, so same way, if I will move to the x-axis, x-axis sideways, so you can see here it is moving as well over here. Okay, but it's not showing me here in the my side viewport, because in the side viewport I'm in the X. You can see here the red means X, and I'm in the X view. So that means the X is restricted because X is on the flat angle. So when I move, it is coming towards the x-axis, so no changes is shown because it is constant. The size is constant. But if I will penetrate through these objects, you will see some changes happening there. Okay, so just notice here. Okay, so you might see that it is moving, but because of the flat angle, I am not able to see that. Okay, now why I told you it is highly recommended to use these 3 viewports. The reason to use these 3 viewports is that if you're working on the perspective viewport, okay, let me move it here. Sometimes you see an illusion of right direction, right movement, but actually it is not. Suppose if I will take my sphere from the middle and try to move the sphere on this end of the box. Okay, notice what happens. I will take this, move it, okay, and put it over here. Now see what happened. Here it moved down. If I will move it up back again, so you can see, okay, now it's fine. I am like back on the in my box. Okay, but issue is that I'm back over here. Okay, looks fine from the top viewport. Okay, and also look fine from the perspective, but notice in the front viewport it is above the ground, and also in the side, because in the perspective viewport it's not showing me the actual direction. So if I'm moving around, see what is happening. Okay, and especially I am moving from the middle of the sphere. The middle, you will see like there is a white box. So let me zoom in, so you can see a white box over here. This yellow box. This yellow box means to move in all directions. So that means if I move in all direction, I can go anywhere randomly. Okay, not sticking to the ground, not sticking to the actual direction. Okay, so that's why we have to stick to the angle. So either you have to use these viewports to stay 100% on the track, or in the perspective viewport, don't use this yellow box. If I will just move it down from the y-axis, and you just notice here front and x-axis, so I'm just doing it to fix it. Now it is 100% on the ground. Okay, so you can see it is on the ground. It is on the ground here, but it's not but before it wasn't showing. So now it is fine. Now if I want to move it here, so simple, what I have to do is that I have to move to the x-axis, then I have to move to the y-axis, and then you will see that I'm right in the I have moved it in the right direction without penetrating through this box or moving it in the air. So everything is fine basically here. Okay, then I have if I want to back, I can go here or here. But it kind of takes time. It's like, you have to move here and then back. Like so many, you have to work on that. If you want to do the same thing, there is another way. Where I was moving to this direction. I was also moving to this direction. Okay, X and Z. So if you will notice that between X and Z, I have here this green box. Now, what does this green box mean? This means that I am in the like an angle which is perpendicular to these two axes. If I will click on this one, I can move wherever I want freely. But this box will limit me to stay between these two axes. It will never go up. So if you notice here, I can move freely. And notice here, in these viewports, it's not going down or up because I'm restricted to only these two. Same if I will move this one. So I can move up and down, okay, but I cannot go back and forth, okay. So because it will limit me to these two axes, okay. Now other one is here. If I will move it, I can go back and forth, up and down, but I cannot go sideways because it will limit me to these two axes, okay. So this is another way to like move around. So the movement is very important, because sometimes for the first time when you're modeling something, so a lot of people do this mistake because they are working in the perspective and they don't see the things where they are in actual. Otherwise, what will happen if you will not follow the right viewports? Maybe you will think like your object, maybe if you have made a table and on the table you have like a television set. So maybe in the perspective you're looking at right, but in reality, suppose here, okay, suppose this object, this sphere is my television, and this cylinder is my table. So let me move this, okay. So if you will look here on the perspective viewport, it kind of looks like my sphere. My sphere is on the like cylinder perfectly. It is more like sitting on my cylinder. My television is on my table. It looks like that. But if you will notice that in these viewport, okay, it is above the cylinder. Also, it's not in the middle. Okay, so here you can see it's not in the middle. Okay, here as well you can see that. So how you can fix that? You can fix easily from here. You can just move it, okay, somewhere here, move it down, okay, right on the ground, okay, but it's not in the middle from here, so I have to move it in the middle from here. So now you can see it's in the middle. Let me move it a little bit here. Now you can see perfectly in the middle from all the viewports, okay, and perfectly and more like perfectly sitting on the cylinder. So if I move around, you can see that it's basically over there, okay. So I want to switch back to perspective again. I have to press spacebar to go over here, and I can again press spacebar to go outside. Okay, so this is pretty much about the like viewport and the movement, how you can move the object, okay, and how you can switch back and forth to different kind of viewports. Okay, the next manipulation is the rotation. Basically, we cannot rotate the sphere because it's all round, so you will not see the changes. Okay, so let's rotate. Either we can rotate like this one, okay, or like we cannot rotate in like around it because it is again sphere. So I think let's do the rotation on the cube, so you can like more you can see how the rotation manipulation works. So let me first move it a little bit upwards. Now the key for the rotation is basically E on your keyboard. When you press E on your keyboard, you get the rotation, okay. And notice how it is different from the movement. You see these boxes here, okay, tiny boxes which I told you before, and you can see the axis. But when we go to the rotation, when we press E, everything changes. So what we see is that it is more like a gimbal, okay. So you will see here different kind of like orbits, okay. Now first one over here, let's talk about this green one. So you can see a green orbit over here. So if I click on this green orbit and drag my mouse, so it will move around this one, okay, which is basically the y-axis. So it is moving around the y-axis, okay. And now if you will see the red one is basically x-axis. So if I will go to the x-axis and rotate it, so you will notice that it is rotating around the x-axis, okay. So you will see here there is a blue one which is the z-axis. So if you will click on the z and move, you will see it is moving around the z-axis, okay. So that's how pretty much it works. But other than that, you have like basically one more, which is kind of a cyan color outside. Now what is this? This is basically it will move around around your view. Like my view is right now like pointing in this direction. So if I will move it around, you can see that it is moved in this direction. Okay, so let me undo that. And if I will orbit somewhere here, okay, and then if I will try to move around, it will move in this direction. So depending on the view of my viewport, my angle of the viewport, it moves around that. Okay, so sometimes you use that, sometimes you don't use it, but basically the main that you have to use the orbits are these one. Okay, and you can also move freely. How to move freely between these? Like suppose if I will go in between this blue, red and green in this part, so you can see how I can move just like a gimbal. Okay, or like a more like a ball on the gimbal ball that you can move around. Okay, so or the trackball, usually like before we used to have trackballs which was like mouse, so you have the trackball fit on something so you can move around. So it's kind of like that. So pretty much it works in this way, the like rotation. Now the next one we have here is the scale. Now shortcut for the scale is R on the keyboard. So when you press R on your keyboard, you will see something like which is similar to move. So if I will go to W, movement, you see we have the movement tool here, and if I press R, I will go to scale. Now pretty much same, but in the movement you see arrows at the end of each axis, but here you don't see the arrow end of each axis. What you see is that you see the boxes end of each axis. Okay, so if you want to move it in all direction, just like in movement, if you want to move any object in all direction, you go in the middle and move it around. Okay, but it's not recommended. But in scale, you can scale you can do that, because in scale, if I will go in the middle and scale it up and down, it can become bigger and smaller in all direction. Okay, but if I want to only scale this object on this x-axis, I can do from the x-axis, it will only scale it up from the x-axis. Same way z-axis, I can do that. Okay, y-axis. So that's pretty much in this way I can do that. And also I can use this perpendicular thing. So if you can see, it is becoming bigger and smaller as well on the z-axis and x-axis, both at the same time. Okay, this is good if you want to do some squish and stretch like animation. Okay, same way if I will do here, so you can see it is becoming bigger and smaller between the y-axis and the z-axis. X-axis, y and x-axis. Okay, so this is pretty much you can do that. Now one more thing, in these manipulation, all these three, there are different ways to there are different directions to move the object. Okay, now notice this is my object. Okay, if I move my viewport over here, this arrow x-axis or z-axis or x-axis or y-axis, they are pointing out of the object itself. The object, my box, okay, its z-axis in this direction, so this z-axis is pointing in this direction as well. My x-axis is pointing in this direction, and my y-axis is pointing at this direction. It is taking my object, and depending on the object, it is showing me the direction. So if I will move here, to z-axis will move parallel to the direction of my box as well over here. Okay, so this is basically on my object direction, and this can be changed. How this can be changed? If I will go to my move tool and double click this, so you will see that this option will be popped out. Okay, now in the axis orientation, you will see that it is object right now, and I told you before that it is pointing in the direction of my object. That's because, so that's why its axis orientation is object. That's why it is doing that. But if I will go here, change it to world, now notice how it changed. Okay, let me minimize this. It is not direct. It is not accessing, or it's not showing me the direction of my box anymore. It is showing me the direction of the world, of the view of my viewport. If I will move here, just notice how it is changing. Okay, so it is not moving in the direction of the box. It is moving in the direction of the world. Okay, so this is my world. Okay, how you can like the easier way to show you is that, notice if you have this like grid, see the grid down. Okay, now notice the grid, this is the z-axis of the grid. Can you see that? So see the axis of the box right now, the like of this moving axis of the box. It is pointing in the same direction of my grid, because this grid belongs to the world. Okay, the world in which I am right now. This is the x-axis. See how this axis is pointing here. Okay, so accordingly this y-axis is also. Okay, so this is basically the world direction. Okay, pretty much the same direction where I have my like my grid. Okay, so I can keep it world, or I can keep it like component. There are some components also, parent also, normal also. Basically, like these are some advanced ones, but and also you can make your own direction here. But I highly recommend it to keep it to the object. Okay, so the object is being set it up. So I will close it, and now I'm back to my object like direction here. So basically, these axes, this center point, and this whole thing is called pivot. Okay, now pivot can be changed. Okay, but it is always it's highly recommended if the pivot is in the center of the object. It's easy to manipulate, it's easy to move, scale, or rotate. Okay, but sometimes what happens, you have objects that does not have its pivot in the center. Okay, so if it does not has it like pivot in the center, so what you do is that you can simply move there. For example, this is my box. Let me do one thing. Okay, okay, don't worry about this. We will we will go to that option again, but just notice that, can you see now I'm not moving my cube or box from the center itself. I'm just moving from here, and see the axes are moved outside the box, which is not that recommended. I can still move it, but it's not that like, you know, it's not that handy. It's kind of little hard to do that if it is outside the box. So how to bring it back to the box? How I can move it back to the center of the box? It's very simple. To do that, you just have to select your object. Okay, like in my case, it's the box. I can go to the modify, and in the modify, I have center pivot. So if I click on the center pivot, automatically my pivot from wherever it is, it will move to the center of my object. Now you can see it's back there. So it's more like pretty much the way you can do that. Okay. Now you notice that to demonstrate this, I moved my pivot outside the box. Okay. So what I did, I decentered my like the box pivot, just to show you how you can move it back. But usually sometimes you don't want the pivot to be in the center. Sometimes you don't want that. Okay. For example, let me do one thing here. Let me put this box back to its original position here somewhere. Okay. And then make it bigger, smaller. Okay. Or let's do one thing. Let's move it back here. Okay. Let me rotate it. And I want to make it normal as it was before. Okay. Now I will scale this box. Okay, little bit. I will make it bigger from the x-axis and y-axis, and then I will make it squeezed from the z-axis. So it will look like something like this. Okay, now I will go back to my rotation. Now imagine I'm trying to create a box. door. Now, door usually have hinges on the corner here. So when you open the door, it should not open like this because it is opening and closing from the center. Okay, because my pivot point is in the center. I don't want the pivot point in the center. I want the pivot point in the corner, so it will act like it's a door. Okay, so how we do that? So if you remember, I just demonstrated, I just moved the pivot point outside the box. So same way, what you need to do is that you just have to press D on your keyboard. Okay, D for door. So you press D on your keyboard. As soon as you will press D on your keyboard, you will notice that you will get all different kinds of accesses. So basically you are in the transformation of pivot mode. You are transforming the pivot. So now if I will move anything, my object will not move. Like suppose if I want to move an x-axis, see the object is not moving. What is moving? The pivot. So I'm in the pivot movement mode. So if I can move the pivot here, okay, because this is where it should be if it like there is a box, like if it is a door. So a little bit here, okay, and also you can little bit rotate it. Okay, so you can also rotate, you can also move here, but you cannot scale because scaling, like there is nothing to do with the scaling. Okay, because scaling on object is fine, but on the pivot like on the pivot you cannot do any kind of scaling. It's not needed basically. Once you are done, I have set it up. So what I need to do is that I just have to press D again on the keyboard, and now I'm in the normal view. Now if I will try to rotate my box, see from where it will rotate. It will rotate from the pivot where it was before, like it was it will rotate from the pivot, the new pivot where I have moved my existing pivot. So you can see that it is rotating in this way. So it's acts like a hinge over here for like a door. So this is how you can move the pivot. So moving pivot, sometimes you need to do that. Okay. Now, as I told you before in the first class that there are different parts in Maya. You have top part, bottom part, you have left side, you have right side. In the right side, you have 3 tabs here. You can see channel box, layer editor, you can see modeling toolkits, you can see attribute editor. So let's see the one which are on the left side. Okay. So, right side. So first one here we have is the channel box, like channel editor. So right now we are in the channel editor. Now what is the channel editor basically? Channel editor, if you select any object, okay, like suppose if I will select the sphere or the cylinder here, okay, so it will show me that what is the things that I have changed according to these basically my objects. Okay, so here in my sphere, if I will select it in the channel editor, it will show me translate X, Y, and Z, rotate X, Y, and Z, scale X, Y, and Z, and visibility on and off. Now, what is the X, Y, and Z? X, Y, and Z is basically your direction. And what is translate, rotation, and scale? Translate is the movement, rotation is the rotate, scale is the scale. Okay. Now, translate X means I have moved my object from its original position to this position, and I have moved my sphere from the original position. Original position is always 0. Okay, 0 means the original position. I have moved it from the 0 to this position, and I have moved my translate Z, my Z position, from 0 to this direction. So it will show me I have moved X and Y and Z from original to this, but rotation, it's all 0. 0 here means I have not rotated my sphere at any time. They are all they are original. Okay, so there is no changes here. X, Y, and Z scale shows me 1. 1 means 100% means original size. Okay, so there is no 0 because if I will make them 0, suppose if I will go to x-axis and make it 0, notice what happens. It becomes flat because the scale is changed. So that's why the scale, original scale is 1 always. Okay, so I can see that over here. Now, not so many changes were happened in the sphere, only the movement. But if you will select, if I will select this one, my box, so you will see a lot of changes I have done. I have moved it, I have rotated it, I have scaled it. Okay, so many things I have like done on it. Okay, so suppose if I click over here, take my movement tool and move it back and forth. So you can see if I'm moving back and forth, okay, you can see the x-axis is changing and the z-axis is changing. Okay, now the reason why x-axis is changing because it is little slightly rotated. Okay, because I have moved my like center of the pivot here, so that means if I rotate here, it's also moved a little bit to this direction. That's why I have it here. Okay, so that's how like it's changing. But if I will move it up and down, it's the same thing. It will show me the other parts. Okay, if I will rotate it, you can notice that it is rotating in this like direction, and you can see the changes are happening. If I will scale it on x-axis, so only x-axis will change. If I will change it y-axis, so only y-axis will change. If I will z-axis, z-axis will change. If I will change from here, so you can see x and z will change. Here, x and y will change. And if I will change from here, everything will change. Okay, so you just have notice here. Now, I was doing with the manipulation tools, move, rotate, and scale. I can do as well from here. Okay, now suppose if I will go to my x-axis, okay, I can type a value over here, like maybe suppose 1. So you see it have moved 1 like points to the other side. Like suppose if I type 10, so you can see it has moved on the x-axis on the according to this like the size over here. Okay, now other way I can do is that I can select all of them, and when I select all of them, if I will change only one value, suppose this one, and make it 5 and press enter, all of them will turn into 5. Okay, so I will undo that. Okay, so this is how you can like basically change the things in the from here. Okay, same thing here. If I will like select all of them, and if I will type any value, so all of them will change. Okay, so you can see all of them are 5 now. So if I will like select all this, so if I'll press 5, everything will become 5, and it will like 5 is too much. Let me make it select them again. Just how to select all is that you select the first one, then you drag and keep on dragging until all of them are selected. Let's make it 1. Now you will see that it looks like a box. Why? Because all the sides are same. Okay, and as I told you, 1 is the original value. So 1 is the original value. So now this is the original size. Okay. So other thing how you can change is that suppose if I want to I can select this one only y, just like this, and if I will select this one y, okay, and also this one by clicking on the y-axis of the translate and then drag and select this value, if I will go on the viewport and press my middle mouse button, I will see this kind of cursor. So if I will go left or right, you can see the value is changing. Okay, so this is a good way to do that. Okay, without like moving the object, I can move the object by only like dragging back and forth my my mouse cursor. But you have to select whatever you want. Like so if I will select all of them and go here, so all of them will change. Okay, so like this is one way to do that. Now I want my box to be on the original state. So what I can do is that I can go back to my modify. First of all, I have to move my pivot to the center. Okay, so now you can see it is in the center. Now I can select all of it and type 0. So if I will type, sorry, not all of them, because this one should be 1 and this should be a 0. So if I click on 0, so you can see that it is on my original state now. Now this is the original state. 0 position, 0's rotation, and 1 scale. I can move it up. Usually when you create any object, it is not usually on the top. Okay, sometimes it's on the ground, but it depends like how you are making it. So when we will move to the polygonal modeling tool or mesh making tools, we will learn how to create these perimeters. Right now we are just manipulating, but later on we will learn how to make them. Okay, so this is like pretty much a way you can use the channel box here. Okay, now one more thing you can do is that, like suppose this is my original value. Okay, like it's not my original value. Now you can see it's gone back to some other values here. So this is not my original value. So if I want to freeze this or make these like these values as my original value, so what I need to do is that I have to select all of it. Okay, and then right click on it. When I right click, I have here freeze. Now I can do freeze, movement, translate, or rotation or scale, or I can do for all of them. If I will do freeze all and leave my mouse right click button, you will notice that all of them are now the original value. So now this is considered as my original value. So if I suppose if I move it around or rotate it or like make it bigger or you know something like that, and if I want to reset this, what I can simply do is that I can just go here and type the values whatever is there, 0 for this and 1 like 0 for this and then 1 for this. So automatically it will go back to my original position, which is the new original position. It will not go where it was before. Other way you can do is that suppose this is my television which is on the my cylinder, so I have to make sure it is right over the cylinder. Okay, now it is right over there, it's not in the air. Okay, a little bit up. Okay, now I want this to be my original position. Okay, or I don't want this to look like boxy. I want to look like I want it to look like this somewhere. Little bit move it up. Now this I want. Now I want my object to be like this. Okay, I want it to look like this originally. So what I can do is that I can select all of them, right click, okay, freeze and freeze all. So now this is my original position, okay, like original like position for all these like channel boxes and everything. So this is how the channel box like the channel box works. Okay, so if I will select my box, you will see everything is same here as well as in the sphere. I have translate, rotate, scale. Here I have translate, rotate, scale, visibility, same. In the torus also have translate, rotate, scale. Okay, so it's same for all different kind of objects, perimeter. However, there is one or more setting which is known as the attribute editors, the property editors. Okay, so if I will select my box, for example, and where I will find the attribute editor is here basically. So if I will click on the attribute editor, you will see that there are a couple of different kind of tabs over here. So the tabs that we are looking for right now is basically my let me check where it is. Okay, yeah, polycube 2. Okay, so what is the polycube? Polycube is the name of this object. Okay, this is polycube, this is polysphere. If I will go over here, so I have to search for polysphere. So I don't see polysphere right now. I see p-sphere. I can see p-sphere shape. Okay, and I can click on this one. So wherever I will see the like sphere, like here is the polysphere. So if I will see the polysphere, now that's what I'm looking for. Same thing with the torus. So if I will go to the torus, so I have to look for the torus. So here is the torus. Okay, so what is the torus or cube or polysphere? Basically, these are the actual attributes. Okay, in the channel, like now I'm the polycube for this. If I will go to the channel box, as I told you before, the channel box, all the settings are same. I have translate, rotate, and scale for all these objects. They are same. But what is in the attribute editor? Okay, in the attribute editor, the name of these are basically what? These are the object specific change, like a object specific kind of settings. For the polycube, it is different. Okay, like suppose here in the polycube, I have polycube history, I have width, I have height, okay, I have depth. Okay, then I have subdivision also. If you will see, if I will increase the subdivision, you will see there are some more wireframes being created. So this is basically for polygonal modeling to make your object more dense. So right now you don't have to worry about this. When we will move to the polygon modeling, we'll see more about this one. If I will select the sphere, okay, and go to the polysphere, so you will see I don't have the same settings that I had it here, have it here. Okay, this is different. Now I have radius, okay, and I have subdivision axis. So you can see this is different, and height is different. Okay, now notice it have radius and all these settings. It have something different. Now if I will select my torus, okay, and go to polytorus, now the settings are different. I have here radius, but I have section radius also. I have twist also. So what is the radius? It's the outer radius here. Section radius is the inner radius, like the radius here. So there are different kind of settings for different kind of object. If I will do the twist, I can do the twist here, and you can see it's being more like changing over there. Okay, so in the attribute editor, you have object specific. Okay, so what you just need to do is that you have to select your like poly object, okay, and you have to search for it. Like this is the polysphere. Okay, so you have to search for the polysphere. So anything that starts with the word poly, you have to select that, and you will get this object specific like a kind of settings. Okay, so here this is the cube, so you have to search for the word poly. So where is the poly? I can go to next, and here's the poly. Okay, because all these it shows you all the different like kind of attributes which we don't need it right now. We will go them we will like see them one by one. Okay, because it shows you all the history. This is basically history here. So we will see about it in the next classes. What is the history, how you can remove the history, how you can delete the history. But right now you have to search for the word poly if you want to do some kind of changes, like object specific changes. So let's do one. Let's make a new file, and with the help of these objects, let's make something, or just keep like or I think let's make a new file here. Just go to new scene. Okay, I don't want to save this. I want to keep the original one. Okay, so I'm in the new scene right now. So let's do one thing. Let's make a table. Okay, now like remember we have the box, or you can say like a cube was there. So let's make it like a table with that cube. So those you will see in the poly modeling. Remember I was telling you to search for the poly box, polysphere, poly this, poly that. So they are here in the poly modeling section. So there are different ways to make them, but right now we will just do like the simple one, because I don't want to go in the detail in the deep for like creating these objects. We will just do a simple one just to like demonstrate you. So don't worry about if you want to learn more about it, because in the next class you will learn in deep how to work on these. Okay, so let's make a like a table. To make a table, I have this so this cube, okay, or box. So when I will click on this, you will see that it appears on my screen. So first of all, let's make a base of the table. Okay, so I will take my scale tool and make it a little bigger. Now it's a good base of the table, but it's quite like in a height, like there is a lot of height here. It have to be a little bit squeeze. Now this is good. Okay, so I can move it up with the moving tool W. You press on the screen and okay, so now it's a good height. Okay, so just we are making it quickly. Now I can make another one. Once I click it, it's here. Now this is this we will make it as a leg of the table. So I will move it a little bit up. Okay, because it should not penetrate through the grid, because it's not recommended. It should stay above the grid, above, like, you know, just like there. So now it's fine. Now I can take my scaling tool here, okay, and squeeze it just like this and make it bigger. But you can see that it is becoming, when it is becoming bigger, it is becoming bigger from the center. That's why the height is going in the other direction. So what you can do is that either you can move the pivot down, or we can go to the attribute editor and search for the polycube. And here I can change the height, but it's the same thing which is happening. So I think if I press D on my keyboard, I can move my my pivot point down. So if I will scale it up, so it will not scale from the center, it will scale from the end. Okay, now I will press D again, so it's normal. So if I will change the height from here, okay, I think better if I will do from the scaling here, because here it's pretty much the same thing. It ignores basically the attribute editors. If you don't delete the history, it actually ignores your pivot point. So let's not do from there, just do normally from here. So basically I have made it here. Okay, so let me make it a little bit bigger, not too big, otherwise it will start penetrating over the box, if you, or over the tabletop. So you can see that. So I will make it a little smaller, so it will not do that. Okay, now I can do one thing. I can switch to my top viewport, more easier. Now I'm in the top viewport, but I cannot see the leg, so I can turn on my wireframe from here. Now I can see my leg is here. I can move the leg here. Okay, and if I'm moving it here with this like perpendicular yellow box, that means I'm going only left and right, back and forth, but I'm not going top and down. So that means I'm not going in the wrong direction. It is restricting me to the right direction. Now I can make another one, but the best thing to do is that I can make a copy of it. Okay, so the copy of this, how to copy anything in the Maya is duplicate, through the duplicate. To do the duplicate, you have different ways to do that. First is that you select the object that you want to duplicate. You just go to the edit, you press duplicate, okay, or Control D to duplicate. So if I will press, if I will go here, duplicate, so you will see there is no change, because the duplicated cube or box, okay, is over the original one. So if I will move now, so you will see original one is still there, the duplicate is moving, the duplicated one is moving. Okay, or how I can do that, I can select both of them. Now I can duplicate both of them at the same time. I can go here on edit or duplicate, or I can use the shortcut which is Control D. So I can just press Control D, it is duplicated, and I can move them here. Okay, so now I will press space bar again to my on my viewport, and then go back to the, I will hover over my perspective, space bar again, and if I will move around, you can see the table is kind of ready. Okay, so now if I want to move the table, I can move wherever I want, but notice what is happening. Because the table, it's in different parts, so I cannot move it just by clicking on it and move it, because only the part that I have selected will move. So what I need to do is that I have to select it all, just like with the marquee around it, and then I can move it. Okay, so don't move from the middle, otherwise what will happen, it will move it in the air. So move it from the perpendiculars or from the these axes. So it's not recommended to move it from these two perpendicular, otherwise it will move on the top or the y-axis, because it will move in the air. So you have to move you have to restrict yourself to this area. Okay, so now I can move it around, but I have to select all of them. Okay. One more thing you can do here is that you can select all of them and you can make them as a group. So next time you don't have to select all of them, or you don't have to shift select and like select all the parts one by one. So to make a group, you have a you can go to the edit, you have group. You can ungroup also, you can group also. So if you want to group, you can press Ctrl G on your keyboard, or you can press the group. But notice there is a small box next to it. This small box, if you will click on it, it will give you the setting of the group. If I click on it, it will ask you what kind of group you want. You want the group to be under the parent or to the world. So usually you don't change it to the world, you keep it parent. Okay. In some cases you want it to be per world. Okay. But I will keep it as a parent, because what is the parent? Parent is the first one, which is the cube one. So everything will be attached to the parent, so the like pivot and everything will be on the parent. Okay. Otherwise what will happen? It will become like a normal object. The pivot will be not with the parent, it will be somewhere in the center or anywhere. Okay. Now I want the pivot of the group to be in the origin. Where is the origin? This is the origin, because if you will see that this is the green, like because I selected this in the last, so this will be staying as a origin. So as I selected this top part of the of my table in the last, that's why it is green. So if I will keep it origin and press group, so the pivot will stay in this green area. That's why I said green color shows you the last selected object, because the sequence of selection is very important in Maya. Okay, but I don't want it to be a origin. Maybe I can put it in the center. Okay, so I can go and put it in the center, and then when I press group, it will become a group. So next time I don't have to select all of them. Okay, sorry, it isn't. So notice if I click on it, what happens? It's still separated. Okay, the reason is that if you were to select the whole group, you will see in the outliner you have a group over here. So you click on the, because one more thing, don't worry about the outliner right now, because we will go in deep in the outliner in the next class, and we will learn more about the outliner. So if we will go in the outliner here, you will see this group, which is basically this whole thing. You can rename it by double clicking here, and you can name it table. So whenever you have to select the whole thing, you don't select from here, you just click on the outliner, whole thing will be selected, and then move. Okay, and if you will select from here, it will not select the whole thing, it will only select the part, but group you have to select from here. Okay, so this is how like the groups like usually work. Okay, so I can move around and everything is just like in this way. So this is how you can make a group over here. Okay, now we have this like a table over here. Now what we can do is that I can just take the table, okay, and make a duplicate of the table. Now to make a duplicate of the table, as I told you, you have Control D option, and you can go here and duplicate. Another way to do is that if you press Shift key on your keyboard and move your object, you can see that when you're trying to move, just look at the cursor. The cursor says clone. So if I move the object with the Shift key pressed, it will not move the original object, it will move a clone of it. Now you will see there is two tables. So what I will do here is that I will just rename this one to chair. Okay, and keep this selected. I will go to the my scaling mode, okay, and make it smaller. But if you will notice that it is becoming smaller from the center, because I kept the like pivot on the center. So don't worry about that. You can move it with the D key, you can move it down, okay, or just like that. So now, and then you can move it down on the grid itself. Okay, it should be on the grid now. So on the grid now, if I will make it bigger or smaller, okay, with the scaling, so you can see that it is becoming bigger and smaller from the bottom here. So it's pretty much easy to move around your pivot point, but it is really important. You have to keep a track on that. Okay, so now I will move over here. Let's do one more thing here. The table, I want the table to be a little bit bigger. Okay, like something like a white sort of table. So just look at, because it is a group. If I'm making the whole thing bigger, notice that the legs are becoming wider as well. Okay, So, but later on what you can do is that if I can select, I can deselect this top of the table. To deselect anything, okay, to select more than one object, you have to press Shift key and select more than one object. To deselect anything, what you need to do is that you just, like suppose if the whole thing is selected, you just have to press Control on your keyboard and you can click on the object that you don't want to like select, okay, or with the Shift key as well, because this is like a group, so you can see this is also really a group. Okay, so maybe because it will only work if it is not a group, so I will do something like this. I will select all these except for the top part, and then I can take my scale tool and scale it down. Okay, don't worry about this, we will see that in detail, just like I'm showing you, giving you an example of duplicate, another example of duplicate. So this is my chair. It's pretty much does not look like a chair because there is no back. So what I can do is that I can take this top of this chair, so I can duplicate this one as well. And once it is duplicated, I can make it a little bit smaller like this and taller. And I can put it back here, up here. Okay. And notice that whatever I duplicated, it is still inside this group. Okay. So here it is a new cube. Okay. So this is how we'll get this. I can select the chair. I can move the chair here. Okay. Now, I don't want only one chair. I want more than one chair. So what I can do here is that I can first move this here. Okay. And it's penetrating to this leg. So I will just move it here. Okay. Now, I don't want only one chair. I want more chairs. So what I can do is that I can duplicate with the Shift key, move it here, or Control D and move it here. And there is one more thing I can do. Okay, I can go to create, okay, sorry, edit, duplicate, okay, and then I can move it here. Now once I moved it, Maya not only duplicated its like the object, Maya also recorded the position, how much I have moved from here to here, it is also recorded. So if I will go to edit, and this time I will not do the duplicate. If I will do the duplicate with transform, so what it will do, it will copy my last transformation. What was the last transformation? I have moved it here. So it will record, it will use that recorded transformation, and also it will duplicate this object. So if I will click on duplicate with transform, so notice that it also has duplicated my chair, but it used the last recorded transformation. So that's very smart thing that like Maya usually do. Now I have 3 chairs. I can select all of them from here with the Shift key. Okay. And then what I can do is that I can press Shift key on my keyboard to clone this, but you will notice that it is basically pointing the other direction. So what I can do is that I can go to my channel box. Okay. And I can take my rotation tool and just see I can rotate it on the y-axis. Okay, so y-axis is pretty much here. Okay, if I will type here 90, okay, so it will rotate in this direction. So that means I want 90 more. So total should be 180. So if I will type it here 180 degrees on y-axis rotation, so now it is rotating in this way. Okay, so I can move them. So quickly we just made this one, okay, and only with the box, okay. So we can do a lot of different things with this simple objects we can make with these like primitives, but don't worry about how to make the boxes and how to like put the boxes. Right now I just pressed it here. I have ignored the others because I just wanted to like demonstrate how the duplicating can be done and how this more like the setting can be done. Okay, now the last thing, when you're moving anything, you can do the snapping. Okay, now what is the snapping basically? Suppose if I will take my chair and let me table, let me do one thing. Let me press D on my keyboard and move the pivot down on the ground, so it will stay on the ground rather than in the center, otherwise it will not be that good. Okay, so now it's on the ground, so anything that I will do the change, it will be from the ground itself. Okay, just see that. So it will stay like that. Now if I'm moving anything, you will notice that it is freely moving, and I am not accurately moving wherever I want. Suppose I want to, let me move these somewhere here. Oops. Because they all are in the different directions, that's why they're mirrored. So now if I want to move this, okay, it's not moving on the actual accurate position. Suppose I have a grid and I want to move this on this part of the grid. So it's a little hard for me to move it, okay? So if you will see that if I'm moving, it's really hard for me to move actually on this part of the grid, because I have to move here, and now I'm at that part, I'm not accurately on this part of the grid. So there are snappings over here. Now what does the snapping actually do? Snappings move your objects to the right accurate position. So if I will choose the snap to the grids, and notice if I move something, it snaps. So that means it will only move to that grid where I want. It will always take me to that grid area. Okay, like suppose I want to be in between this one. I want to be, I want my table to stand over here. Okay, so I will just move it in this direction, and notice that it is in this point of the grid. Okay, so all these points, all these intersecting points are basically snapped when you are using this one. So there are different ways of snapping. Okay, so you have snap to grids, you have snaps to points, you have snaps to project center, you have snaps to view planes, and so many other things. Now other thing, like as the snap is on, what I can do is that I can take the chair also. Okay, and okay, sorry, I think when I was moving my chair, so I not only moved the chair, I actually moved the pivot point, because I forgot to press the D key again when I was moving the pivot point. That's why I have I was having that issue when I was moving my chair. So now they are fine. Okay, so like this is one thing that you have to keep in mind. Always when you are changing the pivot, you have to press the D again, otherwise it will be not right. So I'm moving this, okay, and you can see that my chair is also snapping now. Another thing is that if I will move my chair over this table, so if I will go to the table right now, okay, so and if I'll take my chair and move to the table, on the table, so the chair is now snapping to the top of the table. Okay, so it doesn't mean that it only snaps on the grid, it can snap on the grid of the object on which you are applying. So it is snapping over here. Okay, so if I will turn on my like wireframe, okay, or the shaded wireframe, so you can see that basically like here, this one, so you can see the wireframe over here. Okay, and it can actually snaps on these on my objects grid as well. Okay, so this is the like how the snapping works basically. So you have different kind of snappings. You can try out all these kind of snappings basically. Okay, so snaps to point also, suppose if I turn on the snap point, you can turn more than one at the same time. Okay, but I don't want, I only want the snap to the point. So now it will only snap to the point. Now what are the points? Points are here, there is one point here, there is one point here. What are the points? The intersecting points, like this one or this one. So if I will move, so quickly it will jump to the point. Okay, then intersecting points here. Okay, so just like that. So like different ways to do that. Okay, so you can search that, you can try these, like these are like very handy tools when you're moving the objects, when you accurately like designing, especially architecture modeling if you're doing. Okay, so that's pretty much it, and about the manipulation of the objects. okay, and how you can work on the selection, object manipulation, movement, rotation, scale, pivot point, channel box, attribute editor, and then like setting up objects, freeze, and and resetting its transformation, snapping also, grouping also. Okay, then how you can duplicate with transform, and how you can do different kind of things. So next class we will move to the organizing scene. We will learn more about the outliner, how to create hierarchy, how to group any object. Okay, we will learn about the hypergraph. We can learn about the hide and unhide, layers and selection, and different kind of things we will learn about. Okay, so guys, subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed it, and also go to the bell icon, click the bell icon as well, and keep following, keep sharing, and help others to gain knowledge from my tutorials. I will be uploading a lot of more tutorials, and also visit my website. All the links are given in the description below, and these files, if you want to download, these are also like the links for these files are also given in the description below. Okay, thank you guys, and bye, and we'll see you in the next session.